What's up, YouTube? This is Henry again. Wanted to come back with a training update. I just finished week 1 of my training. And like I said in the first video, the first few weeks or I guess first few months is going to be more just getting the body moving. You know what I mean? It's been so long since I've done some of this stuff, just to sit on the bike again and put some miles underneath me and do some strength training, do some running. Not really getting into the pool at this moment. Like I said, I don't even have a membership. I don't even have a place to swim if I wanted to. So I got to go get a membership later on at some point in the future here in the next few months, but not really worried about that. Like I said, I swam in high school, so there's plenty of more work to be done in the run and the bike. So just a quick update on my training. The first time I went out and did anything, which was last weekend, I did about an 8:15 mile on the run, on the 1 mile, and then I did, what was it? I think I averaged 16.1 on the bike, miles per hour for a 10-mile loop. And so this past weekend, sore as can be. Monday was an off day, and then Tuesday we was strength training, and then Wednesday was something just to stay busy, keep moving for 30 minutes, just something light workout. So I did 30 minutes on the indoor trainer. Thursday was strength training again, and then Friday was an off day. So come Saturday and Sunday, this past Sunday was one mile run, max effort, and then Sunday was the 10-mile loop again, max effort on the bike. So I expected Saturday and Sunday to just completely blow, to be perfectly honest. I thought it was just going to suck. And even though it sucked, it hurt. I mean, from my waist down is just blown. It sucks. It hurts so bad from doing strength training, lunges and squats and stuff that I haven't done in years. I didn't fare that bad on the 1 mile run. My first one was like 8:15, 8 minutes, 15 seconds. And then this past Saturday, I did about 8:36. So it was just a little bit slower, and my muscles were fatigued and sore right from the beginning. I wasn't fresh like I was the week before. So I'm not even though I ran, 17 seconds slower for the mile, I'm not that disappointed. I figured I'd be 9 or 10 miles, for the mile, and I wasn't. So yay, kudos. I feel great about that. It's not a bad starting point. My muscles are going to be fatigued going forward with this much training, but I don't think I'm going to be as sore as I was. Like, it's just painful to walk, and to sit down and go to the bathroom sucks. So, yeah, I'm happy about the 1 mile. 8:32 or whatnot for the mile, just for, the second time I did it. I'm happy with that. For the 10-mile bike ride, I was actually faster. I averaged 16.6 miles an hour for my 10-mile loop versus the 16.1 that I did the first week. So even though, again, I was completely wasted from the waist down and I was fatigued, I tried to go out just a little slower than I did the first week. And I think what that did was it's obviously saved me for the last few miles, where I was able to maintain a little bit faster pace, which boosted my miles an hour up. So that's my training update. I have strength training again. Today's an off day. I have strength training again tomorrow, and then another light workout on Wednesday, strength training on Thursday. Friday's an off day, and then I have another max effort 1 mile on Saturday and a max effort 10-mile loop on Sunday. So I will definitely keep you updated on that. Now, to get into the meat and potatoes of the video, I wanted to give you a quick rundown of what happened to me in 2004 when I did Kona. Like I said, I was a novice at Ironman. Heck, I was a novice at triathlon in general when I got invited to do that race the first time. So in 2003, I did my very first sprint triathlon in Wilmington, North Carolina. Absolutely loved it, had a great time, did really well with minimal training. I was active duty in the Marine Corps at the time. I was in great shape. I was young, full of what and what. So anyway, so I went out and did the sprint, and That was in September of 2003. And then I had the opportunity to go to Hawaii and watch Kona in October of 2003. Well, like I said in my first video, my dad was one of the original Ironmen, so we were able to kind of hobnob with some pretty high rollers with Ironman. And while we were out there, we saw the president of Ironman, me and my siblings, and we decided to go talk to him because we were all inspired. We saw all these people doing the Ironman, and we wanted to do it too. So we made contact with him. Lo and behold, he loved the story that, us three siblings and then two husbands of my sisters, all five of us wanted to do this race, and they granted us permission. Now, the five of us went over there in 2004, but only two had happy endings. So I want to run through really quick what happened. Like I said, I was a novice in the sport. I didn't know anything about triathlon. I was a swimmer in high school. I ran cross country in high school. The only biking I did was when I was a little kid, so I had to learn how to bike, on the road, like in a race environment. I mean, I don't even know what you call it. I didn't know how to do any of that. I had to buy a bike. I didn't even have a bike. But anyway, so we started training for Ironman. They invited us, so there's certain things that you have to do. You have to do a half Ironman in the same calendar year, and you have to finish in under 8 hours. So, we started training, we started working our butt off, and my first half Ironman was White Lake, North Carolina. I think I did it in like 6 hours and 45 minutes. It wasn't that difficult. Like I said, it hurt, it sucked, it was a long day, but it wasn't anything that, that I didn't think I could handle. And then I ended up doing the Macon half Ironman in Georgia later that year. It was a little bit slower. It was a much hillier course. It was much hotter. I think it was in June or July that year. If you've ever been in Georgia, especially Macon in June, that's the place that that's the reason why they invented air conditioning, was because of that area of the country and in that month. It was just brutal. But anyway, so I finished. I think I was a little over 7 hours, like 7 hours, 15 minutes or whatever. So I finished in under 8 hours, and we stepped up our training. We were increasing distance, but, I didn't have a triathlon coach. I didn't know anything about training the correct way. I certainly didn't know anything about heart rate. My dad, I trained with him, and his method was, well, if we got 60 miles to do, let's just go out and hammer out 60 miles. And then, well, if we have 100 to do today, then we're just going to go out and hammer out 100 miles. And that's the way it was, and that's the way we trained. We just went out and hammered away at it. And, when I look back, when I was really doing those really long races or those long bike rides, when I got to 80, 90 miles, I was done. I mean, I was toast. I had nothing left. And that's scary looking back, that I was going into an Ironman triathlon and I couldn't even hardly finish a 100-mile bike ride. Because, of course, after you get off the bike after doing 112 miles, you still got a marathon to run, 26 miles. So, looking back, I was pretty naive going into Kona that everything was going to go great. I certainly paid no attention to nutrition. None. And they'll tell you there's 4 disciplines to doing a triathlon. You got swim, bike, run, and nutrition. It's the fourth discipline that you have to master. You have to figure out what your body needs energy-wise and fuel-wise and hydration-wise to finish the race. And that's a big thing that I'm trying to concentrate on this go-around, is because, after that, I did a full Ironman in 09, which I'll talk about later. But it's been 15 years. So everything's changed since 04. And my knowledge back then wasn't that great. So I got a lot to learn when it comes to nutrition. But anyway, going into the race, I knew up here that I was having a hard time finishing, our century rides. And I did not want to feel that way on race day. And I made a critical error. I decided that the solution to not running out of energy or my legs going kaput on me was just to consume everything I could at every aid station. And I know some of y'all that are doing triathlons are like, well, what are you talking about? Why would you do that? I wasn't smart. I really wasn't. I hadn't trained that way. When I was on my 100-mile bike rides, I drank water, I ate bananas, maybe a Cliff Bar here and there, but I really didn't consume that much. And which is probably a big reason as to why I couldn't even hardly finish a 100-mile bike ride. But I was so afraid of that happening on race day that every aid station, which was about 7 miles on the bike, I was grabbing whatever I could. Not only was I eating that, I was also consuming the nutrition, the liquid nutrition that I had on my bike that was supposed to sustain me all by itself and was supposed to sustain me all the way through the entire bike ride. So basically, what happened is I overloaded my stomach. I had so much stuff in there. And, when you're doing an activity like an Ironman or any type of endurance event like that, the blood goes, the majority of your blood just goes to your extremities. You're asking your extremities, especially your legs, which are huge muscle groups, to do so much. And it diverts blood away from the stomach. So what was happening is, even though I was eating and drinking everything in sight, everything in my stomach wasn't getting processed. Everything in my stomach was just sitting there. So even though I was drinking water, my body wasn't processing the water. Even though I was eating, my body wasn't processing the nutrition that I was putting in there. It was just sitting there. So when I got off the bike 8 hours and 13 minutes later, wrap your head around that. I mean, just go sit on the couch for 8 hours and see how absolutely miserable you are. I stayed on a bike for that long. So, after I got off the bike, after 8 hours and 13 minutes, I couldn't even stand up. I was so cramped. I was bent over like in the arrow position. I was bent over, and it took me the entire transition area to be able to stand up straight. So nevertheless, I put myself in a real bad spot. And I only made it 4 miles into the run, and I pretty much walked those 4 miles. I sat down at the aid station at mile 4. A medical crew saw me there. They started going over me, checking my vitals, and they pretty much said, they explained to me what was going on. They knew what was happening. And they explained to me what was going on. It was still my decision, but it was a smart decision. There was no way I was going to finish 21 more miles in that condition, and I would have probably just put myself in more trouble medically. So I made the decision to bow out of that race as hard as it was, and it sucked. My oldest sister finished. My dad finished. Me and my 2 brother-in-laws didn't finish that race. So out of the 5 of us, only 2 finished. And, it was a tough day. If I would have known that particular race was the last time that I would have done a triathlon with my father before he passed, I would have probably gutted it out a little bit longer. Like, I don't know if I'd have finished that race. I really don't think I would have. I would have, I was in rough shape. But they would have had to drag me off that course, I just, my dad was healthy at the time. He was 61, but he finished. He was in great shape. Little did we know that, 3 years later, he'd be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And he ended up dying 15 months after being diagnosed. And so I never got to race with him again after that. So it's a big, it's kind of a big unfinished business type deal, but I don't really look at it that way. I try not to. I'd love to. It's just something that I want to do, and I want to finish this race. I want to get over there and do it. And God, I'd love to go over there and have a great day. I mean, if I can go over there and finish the race and feel great afterwards, hey, that'd be great. Everybody wishes they could do that at Kona. Kona sometimes has different plans. Kona's a tough race. It's one of the hardest Ironmans on the circuit. It's a tough one. But so that's it. I don't want to talk too long. I want to try to keep the videos fairly short for those that are going to watch it. I wanted to give you kind of a recap of my 2004 race. The next video I'll do, I will tell you a little bit more about my dad and how he got introduced into the sport of triathlon and that race in particular. And then, of course, I'll give you my update on my training after I do the mile and the 10-mile run next weekend. So I appreciate y'all watching. I don't know if anybody wants to watch this or not, but I appreciate everybody watching. And if you want to kind of stay tuned and be a part of, this whole journey that I'm going through of getting to Kona and doing an Ironman, just hit the like and follow button below, and we'll do this together. And again, I appreciate everybody's feedback. I appreciate any tips or any advice that y'all have, because I'm certainly new to this again. And other than that, we will see y'all next week. Aloha.